Okay, can you guys see me? All right, are you guys seeing me okay? Yes? Okay. Okay, hang on a second. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure something out sorry, technical issue at the moment. They've changed something someplace and I'm not seeing. Yeah. Never mind. It's not your issue. It's not your problem. This would be my problem. Okay. We're not going to worry about that. Okay. Need to make myself a note. Okay, sorry, I had to make myself a note so I didn't forget to talk to somebody about that. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. It's Drama Free Friday. Hello to everyone. If you are new, my name is Barb Owen of HowToGetCreative.com, and I'm glad you're here. So welcome to everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All kinds of great folks showing up here today. And I appreciate that very much. Let's see if I can do one more thing. Maybe I can make myself see what's happening over here. Just weird things. Sometimes technology is just so weird. You know what I mean? I'm sure you do. I'm sure you know what I mean. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining me today on this Friday. So I'm going to just make a change here. Okay, good to go. We're good. Meg's watching on her TV. That's a lot. That's a lot of Barb right there to watch on TV. It's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know if I could do that or not. Yeah, Patty says she worked with technology for over 30 years and she gets what I mean. They change something and you go, okay. It's like, why could you not just leave that the way it was, But no, they can't do that. That would be far too simple. Far too simple to just leave things the way they were, right? Oh no, Race has got me on the TV too. Oh, Race, I got questions for you later. Sometime later, doesn't have to be today, but just since I've got your ear, I got questions for the tech department. So Race that you see in the chat is the tech department. And Clausman is the other half of me, also known as my husband. And he's in the chat as well. So we got some helping today. So it's great to have you guys be here. And thanks so much for joining me. So I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted watching the chat for a minute. So anyway, it's great to have you guys here. Thanks for being here. Okay. There we go. Ray says he knows nothing. If you guys believe that, I got some swampland someplace to sell you. Not the whole family, but most of them, Jan. Not the whole, but almost. Okay. Well, hey, Stephen, are you back in your homeland again? I hope. I hope you had a wonderful vacation. Sounded like you were having a good time. So I'm anxious to hear about that. Stephen's been traveling. He's been a traveling man. Okay. So anyway, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. And just waiting a couple minutes so everybody gets I don't know what kind of message that is, because it looks like everything's going okay here. So I don't know what kind of error message that could be. All right, so let's get chatting, shall we? Hey, Sabrina. Well, I'm glad you could watch, even if you can't chat. So, anyway, okay, so it is, I don't know why, as a streamer, you feel compelled to give a weather report. I don't know what that's about, but it seems like many of us do. And so it's a beautiful day, beautiful fall day here where I live in the middle of the United States. And so it's warm, but it's cool. You know, it's one of those just perfect days. And so it's lovely. I don't know what the temperature is, but it's just nice. You know, it's like the windows open kind of day. It's that kind of day, which I just love. Yeah, just love that. Galena misses summer. I don't miss summer at all. The humidity here just is, you know, forces you to have the air conditioner on. I hate having everything closed up. Cheers, everybody. Remember to dream. We're having chai today. Hello, hello. So nice to see everybody. And I know I didn't call everybody by name today because the chat got scrolling, and I didn't go back and catch everybody. So anyway, welcome to each and every one of you. It is Drama Free Friday. We'll leave the illegal fluids here just for a minute. Then we'll have to move them because Race is in the house, you know. Yeah, so it's Drama Free Friday, and why do we call it that? It is called that because this is kind of the break from the world. And so that's what we're doing, is we just take a break from the world because, you know, as you guys know, it gets heavy in the world. It gets heavy. And if it gets heavy in the world, it gets heavy in our hearts. And so sometimes you just need to take a break, and you need to breathe, and you need to just move forward. So that's what we do on Drama Free Friday. So. And I have an announcement about Drama Free Friday, so if you guys hang on till the end, we will chat about that closer to the end. All right, so rolling up my shirt sleeves. Last week, we worked with Model Magic, which is a kid's art supply. And if you would like to see the full sheets of paper that I created, you'll need to go over to HowToGetCreative.com. And that will open up the front page of the website is a blog. And you'll see a picture right there. It's the upper left-hand corner. And if you open that up and scroll down, you'll be able to see the pictures of the completed papers. And you can click them, and they'll open up and be nice and big for you. So, no worries, Nancy. So you can see the sheets of paper, so you can, you know, actually take a big look, because I've already cut them apart. So what we did, just a review in case you didn't watch last week's stream, is we worked with Model Magic. This is by the company Crayola. Model Magic, it's a kid's clay, air dry clay. I should do more kid-friendly videos. There you go. And you'll find Model Magic in a couple of different packages. You know, it's packaged up a couple different ways. You can buy it in packages like this. You can buy it in tubs. You can buy it in boxes that have individual packages. The advantage to this is you don't have a lot of it to work with. And so, Marion made stamps with clay. Oh, that's cool. That's great. Um, because once you open this package, you really need to use it. It's not, I don't know about the tub. The tub that has like a pound or 2 pounds in it might be airtight enough to keep it. I don't know because I haven't tested that out. But once you open this, I did find out that if you open any of these packages, you really need to get busy using them up. So these are the print plates. Hi, Miss Dana. Haven't seen you for ages. I'm glad you're here, and everyone. So these are the print plates that I ended up making, and I have them in a box just because I took them someplace last night, and when I took them, they're a little on the fragile side. So you do need to be careful with them because you can break these. I mean, these are just made out of kids' clay, right? So, you know, when you work with something like this, you do have to handle it with care. You do have to handle it with care. And they do take a while to dry. The thicker the clay, the longer it's going to take to dry. So I just want to show you these. Again, there are bigger pictures of these on the blog post on HowToGetCreative.com. So those are all ones that I had done already. This one is one that I made last week, I think. I've forgotten a little bit. So those were all print plates. These were the stamps that I made. So these have the pieces are built up. These are impressed down in. They haven't gotten hard. They haven't gotten hard for me. You know, they're still flexible. I mean, you could break them. So, you know, you just have to be careful with them. And this one right here is where I cut out all the stuff from this little piece. And if I'd been thinking, I would have left more space in between those when I cut the pieces out for this. And then it would have been a little easier to use this as a stamp or a print plate. Because you can see a piece broke off here. I mean, it will fall apart quicker than the rest because it has such tiny little attachments. Hey, Rocky, good to see you. You're watching as you travel? Wow. So these are, I really enjoyed using them, but I would not store them in plastic because you don't want them sweating, you know, or getting gummy at all. I would not put them in a sink of water because they're going to probably dissolve. And if you are, just don't bend them too much. They're flexible, but you don't want to like bend them too much. So, you know, there you go. Okay. So that is what we did last week. And you'll see the results today because we're going to work with the results today, but I've already cut them up. And one other thing I wanted to tell you about, I didn't show these on camera last week because we were busy doing other stuff, but there is a link to the Cedar Canyon print or rubbing plates down in the description box below the video. They come in sets of 6, I believe. 1, 2, 3. I think there's 6 in a set. Yes, sets of 6. And I use these very often with my Gelli Plate, and I use them more as a stamp. So they work like a print plate or a stamp, kind of like the Model Magic things. You can also put fabric or thin paper on top of this, and you can take rubbings from this, and they're different from one side to the other. So I did use this one, and I love them. They're not that expensive, and so anytime I find them available locally, I always pick them up. So this one is called Leaves. Yeah, this is the other leaf one. It goes in here. And these are the op art. Let's see. No, this is op art. So there's some really interesting designs. You can get some, and they're hard to show because they're black, but you get some really interesting designs using them on your gel plates, or you can just paint over the top of them and print that way. So op art and leaves, and then I have one more set, but I bought them so long ago that I don't have any kind of packaging, and I don't remember what the name of the set is, but this is the other set that I started with, and again, I just thoroughly enjoy using these, so I just thought I would show those to you and explain why they were in the description box, in case you looked at the description box. So those are Cedar Canyon rubbing plates. Okay, so let's get moving on to what we're going to do today. So what I've done, and if you hear anything in the background that sounds like a machine going, it's because my neighbor is doing something outside. If it gets too terribly obnoxious, I'm sure Race will tell me and I'll close the windows. Yeah. So if it's obnoxious, my apologies. Okay, so here we go. So what I have here are the sheets. I had 3 sheets of paper that I did, and I tore them apart. So I'm going to show them to you. What you're seeing at the moment is the back side of some of them. So this was actually the wrong side of the paper. This is the side that I did the printing on. And so what I did on the back side, I had some clean off things where I'd cleaned off the brayer. And yeah, I could sick the sponsors on the neighbor, but yeah, that wouldn't be nice because he's a good neighbor. He doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve the sponsors. So this was a brayer paper, but there was still a lot of white space, and so I went back and mixed up some paste paint, and so I did a paste paper treatment on that just to add some more, color and interest to the other side of the paper. So there's one. So I'm just going to quickly go through these so that you can see them. Actually, let me show them to you over here. See if I can. Hang on just a minute. I know you're looking at a blank screen, but give me just a second. This way you'll see the colors a little more. They're a little brighter, for sure. Vintage make your own paper kit. How fun. Mm-hmm. Hello, Beaky Ross. I see you. Uh-oh, Linda McAllister has a dead mouse at her house. That's not good. That's never good to have a dead mouse. Never good. Real or otherwise. So here's another one. So you can see the details. This one had the print plate and stamps on both sides. Now I've cut these or ripped these down. So I've ripped all these down. And this is more, you can tell the difference because this has got the paste paper on the back. So I've ripped them down because we're going to make little books out of them. Or more appropriately, booklets. This is funny how this ended up. That's from a rubber band. Okay, so there's that one. And each set of papers is a little different, so I'll show them, whip through them. Hey, Kyla, good to see ya. Uh-oh, Melissa's chickens would eat a dead mouse. I bet they would. So would the sponsors. So I'm just, and as you can tell, I'm sure I just check the chat every couple of minutes, and so that's why I don't interact with it quite as much, maybe as some streamers do, because I'm trying to pay attention to what I'm showing you guys. Yeah, that would be good, huh, Vicky? She says she wishes YouTube would quit changing things. I got news for you. It's just like technology in general. They're never going to quit changing. Never going to quit it. That's just the way it is. So you can see the pages that are related to each other. Again, this is paste paper. And then here is what happens when you fold them. And I folded them into a couple of little bitty signatures. So the piece of paper that I started out with is about 7 inches, across, and about, give or take, about 5 inches tall. So that is the measurement that I used. And so I've made 2 signatures. So let me zoom out just a hair for you. So I've got 2 signatures of 3 pieces of paper. Okay, so this is what they look like folded. And put into little signatures ready to make into a little book. So you can see how pretty they are when they're cut down and then folded into signatures. So there's one, and here's the other one for the same book. Okay. So these are both paste paper treatments on top of cleaning off the brayer on the back side of those papers. I think they would be good for a writing journal depending on your it depends on your pens that you use, because on this the paste tends to be a little, it's kind of like writing over craft paint. So it depends on the pen that you use, and the same thing here because this is acrylic, just regular acrylic paint. But I think they could be fun to do some stuff with. Okay, so we have 2 signatures per little book. And they're really cute because when they're done and folded, they become 3.5 by 5 inches. So look how cute these are. Aren't those cute? So I had enough to do 3 little books, okay, that size, or booklets. Yeah, a ballpoint pen would work, yeah. Hello, Croissant, I see you. And then, because there was a strip at the end, okay, brace yourself. Brace yourself, people. Those of you that like tiny things, you're going to like this. This is from the leftovers, okay? So look. Look at these tiny little books. Tiny little books. So 3 pages, 3 pieces of paper folded makes a 6-page book, right? I know. Aren't they cute? Aren't they cute? So I have enough for 4 books. I only got 2 of them kind of ready. So yeah, the other 2 will wait for another time. Now, what I've done to create the cover is, remember the mixed media paper. This is from the Tattered Angels Mixed Media Origins collection. We used this a couple weeks ago. And so we're going to use these. I used this and made it into the covers. So that's what we have here is the cover. And this was the back side of one of the papers. I don't remember which one. This is the cover, obviously, for the bigger book. I'll give you the measurement here in just a second, Nancy. Hold on just a minute. So there is the mixed media paper. On the other side is, actually, this is a funny story where this fabric came from. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But this is fabric on the other side. So this is another one of the covers. Again, the mixed media paper on this side. And the fabric on the reverse. And this is the last one. So I had enough to do so when it's folded, it'll get the cow. Most of the cow, or all the cow. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The pig's cut off, but the cow's here. So, yeah, looks like the cow pretty much will get on there. And then there's the fabric on the other side. And then for the teeny tiny ones, so we'll measure the teeny tiny ones. And these are not meant to be exactly perfect. They are 1 3/4 inches. This is just the page size. So 1 3/4 inches by about 2. Okay, that's the page dimension. To cut the paper, I cut it about 3.5 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so 2 inches, roughly, give or take. It's like however the strip ended up to be. That's how big it was. And about 3.5 inches. And then folded them in half. They're not exactly perfect because each strip that I ended up with was a little, had its kind of own unique size. And then I did the same thing. I took the mixed media paper. So this was a piece from the mixed media paper, and I've attached some of the fabric to it and turned, folded it over. And so that's going to be this teeny tiny little itty bitty book. Bye, Rocky. Nice to have you visit. So it's going to be the teeny tiny little book. Now, what are books like this good for? I don't know. They're just fun. I don't know. I just like them. So I've got 2 covers ready to go. So let's talk about how I did this. First of all, let me tell you the story of this fabric. I'm gonna get liquid reinforcement. Hi Josie. A little reinforcement as I tell you this story. It's a very sad story about how this fabric came into the world. And as you can see, this is all from one piece of fabric. Okay, here it is. All right, this is all one piece of fabric. Several years ago, when I very first started doing the, I got my first Gelli Plate, and I started gel printing, mono printing, and I got started doing working on fabric as well as paper. And so I did, this is a combination, I think you can see the circular Gelli Plate. See it here? And so I did a lot of Gelli Plate printing on this piece of fabric. It's muslin, and it's all acrylic paint, which is supposed to stay forever, right? Yeah, it's supposed to stay forever. Well, the sad story about this was this piece of fabric was absolutely stunning, by the way. And I got all finished with it, and I put it on behind door number 1, which is where the sponsors stay when I'm streaming. The rest of the time, they roam the whole studio. When I'm recording, they stay in there. And one dastardly afternoon, Charlie had an upset stomach. Yes, he did. Yeah, paint only stays on carpet forever. Apparently so. And, of course, I had not heat set this because I didn't plan to ever wash it or anything else. So I wasn't going to heat set it. And so I walked in. Of course, I found it, like hours later, right? So Charlie had, as cats are prone to do, had an upset stomach and had made his deposit right in the, well, he managed to get it several places on the fabric. Yeah, it's one of those ew moments. Well, there was nothing. It was either wad it up and throw it away, or it was wash it and see what happened. So I washed it to see what happened, and it totally changed the fabric. Okay, completely changed the fabric. It faded it out and so forth, and I was so frustrated. I just chucked it in my bin of stuff. Well, as things happen for me, if I let them sit long enough, I come back to things and I go, well, why was it I didn't like that? Well, I know what happened to this, and I still had in my mind what it used to look like. Well, once I got over what it used to look like, I could accept the way that it is now. It's kind of like other things in life, isn't it? Yeah, cat responsible. And actually, I very much like it now. So there you go. It just isn't what it used to be. It's just been repurposed, a la Charlie. I actually like it. So there you go. And I have the same thing on the little bitty covers. So there's the one side of the cover and there's the other side. I actually like it. I don't object to it at all. Here's the other one. So there's one side, the little tiny one, and the other side. So there you go. I like it. So I'm going to do that. All right, so let me explain to you how this came to be in this configuration. What did I do to prepare this stuff? Because I've explained to you what I did with the pages. I had to do all this stuff ahead of time just so that I didn't bore you to tears with preparing all this stuff. So what I did is I took the mixed media paper and I used a Fusible web product, and I have many Fusible web products on hand. He does need to sign his work. Yes, he does. I have many Fusible web products. This particular one happens to be Wonder Under. Okay, so this is the one I used on this. And I use all different kinds of Fusible products depending on what the application is. I have some Fusible web products that I use for when I'm making a quilt or a piece of like an art quilt or wall art of some kind. Sometimes I'll use Wonder Under, sometimes I'll use Misty Fuse, sometimes I use Steam-A-Seam, and Steam-A-Seam comes in different weights, and lots of Fusibles come in different weights. And actually I have a whole class at HowToGetCreative.com called, I think it's called Fantastic Fusibles, but it's been a while since I've looked at it, so it could have a different name than what's in my head. Imagine. Anyway, so what I did was I took, that is a paper-backed Fusible web, and I ironed it. Because this is the mixed media paper, I ironed that paper-backed Fusible web onto the mixed media paper, let it cool, and then I peeled off the paper backing, and then I laid it down on the fabric and I fused it to the fabric. So this has been fused, so these layers are together as one. Well, then, just to make sure that it was going to stay put, you know, because sometimes glue, no matter what kind of glue it is, sometimes will come apart, especially when you're using it like a book. And I took my sewing machine and I stitched all the way around the outside edge. And I did the same thing on the tiny little ones. You can see I've stitched around the outside edge. So if at some point it does turn loose, the edges are the most vulnerable places because of handling. So if it does turn loose at the edges, it doesn't matter because it's been stitched. And one of the questions I get very frequently about stitching on paper, which this mixed media material is paper, one of the questions I get very frequently is, how big a needle do you have to use to do the stitching? And the answer to that question is, I use the smallest needle I can possibly get away with. And the reason for that is because you don't want to punch great big holes in paper, in my opinion. Now, if you have a different opinion and something else works for you, hey, that is perfection. But I want to show you what I'm talking about down here. So I'm going to zoom in, and I don't know whether you're going to be able to see. Probably not, judging from the camera distance. But right here, when I was turning the corner, I think you can see that right there, I misjudged. And so I've got an extra needle hole because I got too close to the edge. And I know better than to try and sew that close to the edge on paper. So I just backed out and turned the corner, all right? And so that hole right there, once it's in the paper, is going to stay there forever. Now, does that bother me? No, really doesn't, because it's a mixed media thing. By the time I'm done inking edges, painting the paper, doing whatever I'm going to do to it, I don't care. But I just wanted to show you that You do have to make your choices kind of thoughtfully as you work with paper. And I always use, like I said, the smallest needle I can get away with, because I don't want to punch big holes in it. It weakens and makes the paper more vulnerable when you start poking a bunch of holes. Yeah, it's Carol. It's in the it's under Notion's Know How on the website in the membership. So that's where it's located. All right, so let's talk about. We've talked about the size of the pages, and we've talked about the signatures. I have 2 signatures. So real quickly, what we're going to do is we're just going to fold the rest of these pages. Okay, so I have all the pages. I tore all of the pages, and I'm also going to just fold these pages. I'm not paying attention to paper grain, so Kyla, don't listen. Don't listen. I know that some of these are folding against the grain, and I'm just not worrying about it. This is a Teflon bone folder that I'm folding the pages with. The reason that I use the Teflon bone folder is because it does not shine the paper. I find that using a plastic bone folder, which is most commonly available, or the handle of scissors or whatever, if it's plastic or metal, can tend to shine the paper, and I don't like that. So I feel that this is a definite worthwhile investment. This little jewel, which is a Teflon bone folder. Besides that, it fits in my hand very nicely, and I really like that. Oh, Kyla's not listening. She put the monkey icon that's plugged his ears in the chat. Kyla's the bookmaking expert. Now, I may change my mind about these. In fact, let's take a look at them, because we need 3 pages per signature. And so let's line these up. Okay, so we'll start with that one, and we'll stick this one in here. That works for me. And maybe we'll do this one. Well, that worked out fine. So there's one. And so let's see, there's 2. All right, I'm just going to reverse the fold on this one, just because I want to. And I'm going to put this one in here, and then I'm going to put this one in the middle. And which one? Yeah, I'm just going to put this in the middle like that. Okay, so that's going to be another book. So I'm just going to put a clip on it so I know that those go together. These go together. And then I have one more set of pages. Hi, CB. And so I'm going to do the same thing. I love how this page looks. Sometimes I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I fall in love with my own stuff. Do you ever have that happen? Do you ever just love your own things? And let's do this one this way. So I'm just lining up the edges of the paper. You can always tell if you're folding against the grain, because the paper does not want to crease easily out here. And that's when you just say, oh, come on, please, just be nice. Sometimes you can get away with it if you just gently kind of brush against the crease with your hand until the fold goes down closer to being completely folded, and then you can go over it with your bone folder. Sometimes when you're doing it the other way, if you're trying to manhandle it, sometimes the paper rebels and doesn't make a nice fold. This one doesn't want to fold down nicely, so we're going to just coax it until it agrees with us. Ada, I think it's Ada. She says, yeah, she falls in love with her stuff all the time. She has no shame. Good. I'm glad you understand. Is that why I have a big stack sitting and waiting to be used? Yes, it is, Josie. Yes, that is why, because you fall in love with your own stuff. Okay, let's turn this one this way. I just love the size of this little book. I just think it's so much fun. I think it's so much fun. Okay, let's divide these into signatures. Okay, we'll put this one, and then we'll do, we'll do this one, and then we'll do, I think we'll do this one on that, like that. Let's see, do we like it? Let's see. You always have to look at it and decide if you like the way the pages are going to flip. It's like, yeah, that's okay. All right. And we got one more. A small book is not intimidating. Not as much as a big one, for sure. All right. Let's see. Okay. Let's put this one. And then we'll put this one. Okay. I don't spend a lot of time making too many decisions on this stuff because I find if I do, I can confuse myself, so we don't want to do that. All right, so we have 3 books ready to go. And then we have one little book that's all one tiny book ready to go. And then we have this one, and these covers are just going to be folded in half. So I'm just going to gently coax it. Now, this has got multiple layers of stuff happening. The mixed media paper, the fabric, the fusible web. It's got a myriad of stuff going on in there, so we have to kind of coax it a little bit. And I might coax this one a little bit more. I don't think that I actually bone folded it. Okay, so we're going to just put that one together. And then we have these little bitty pages, so let's fold these. You can always reverse the fold like I did a little bit ago if you need to. Gently, gently, because this one's folding against the grain. Okay, so let's put these together. Let's see, what order do we want these? Maybe this one, and then maybe that one, and then maybe that one. We'll call that good, okay? And then slip it inside. And so we now, and you're going to see when we do this that the leading edge here may creep out. You can see a little bit of creep going on here. And after I get it stitched together, if I decide to do so, I'll come back and trim those up later. I don't have any problem with doing that. Okay, so let's do these first. Shall we? Let's do. So we'll set these guys to the side. And what I have here is a whole template. And the way that I do this, I'm sure there are many ways to do this, but the way that I do it is I take a piece of cardstock that measures the height of my book. And in this case, the height of the book was 2 inches. And then I make my whole templates usually 2 inches wide so that I have enough to work with. Okay, so it's the height of the book by 2 inches. And then I'm going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So to mark my holes, because sometimes there are some things that I'm picky about. This happens to be one of them. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to just open this little piece that I've folded. In fact, let me just switch over here so you can see better. Okay, so let's see if I can do this so you guys can see, and it'll be kind of semi-straight with the world. So it's folded, and and I mark it whole template, and I usually will mark the size of the book or the type of book or whatever. I'm not a book expert by any means. Let me just tell you that. I just do what I like and what seems to work for me. And then I take one of these Tim Holtz rulers. You could use any ruler that has a centering side. There are other rulers like this. I like this. I really like this, and because I can see through the ruler. I have another one of these that's metal that you can't see through. I find this a big advantage to be able to see through it. So it's I don't find these expensive. The ruler's expensive, so I really like them. Okay, so I fold it in half. I put 0, and I find the center by making sure that I have the same amount on each side of center, each side of 0. Okay, so there's one line here and one line here. I don't pay any attention to what the marks are. I just count them. So, I know obviously it's 1 inch and 1 inch, but sometimes it's like in between 2 lines. Just make sure that it's the same on both sides of 0. Okay? All right, so I lay this down on my mat, and then I just use a pencil and I mark 0, and I'm going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, even though it's this teeny little book. And I'm going to come down here to 1/4 of an inch from each side. And so I'm just going to mark that right across the fold. And if you have any trouble seeing the fold, then just mark it with a pencil or a pen or whatever. Like that, okay? So there's my whole template. Now, on a big book, I'm very picky about which end is the top and so forth and so on. And so we'll go ahead and mark it on here just because I can obviously see that this hole is closer to the top than this one. So I didn't have it exactly correct, but it's close enough for government work. All right. Then I just use my Tim Holtz paper piercer. You can use some other sort of piercing device. All right, let's see how this is going to work. I don't know, but we'll see. This is that's not going to work. So, okay, let me back out just a little bit. Sorry, fumbling for words here. Okay. This is a piercing cradle. You can use an old phone book. You can use an old catalog. You can use whatever. I happen to have one of these because Claus Man made it for me. And it's just easy to put this in the cradle and then right where the marks are. And when it's tiny like this, it's a little more challenging, but we're going to get it. But you see the needle or the piercing tool, can you see how it goes out the bottom? So it's nice because it has a slit in here between the 2 pieces of wood, and that way it has some place for your little paper piercer to go down without stabbing into your table. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of my little books, and we'll see if we can do all 3 pages at one time. So we're going to put them in here against the end of the piercing cradle because it keeps everything nice and lined up. And let me look here a second. Hang on. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Then I put my template on top of it. And I pierce through the template and through the pages. Okay, so And I have a whole video on doing this step by step by step. And it's one of the sample video classes from HowToGetCreative.com. And you'll find it here on YouTube as well as on the website. There's 12 sample video classes here on YouTube from the website, from the member area of the website. And the one about making these stitched books is here. It's a pamphlet stitched. Different kinds of pamphlet stitching. Okay, so I've done the same thing. Put the cover in. And I'm going to pierce the holes. Okay. And so I've kept the top of my template at the top of the book. So I'm trying to keep all the tops together. And then I'll just put my little pages back in here like so. And then grab a clip. And just clip them together. Like so. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the other one. It does need sound effects, doesn't it? Yeah. So I've got another cover. Okay, so the cover is pierced. So the holes are pierced. And then I'm going to take my little pages, and I don't normally do a whole bunch of them at a time, but that's what we're going to do here. And these little pages are kind of a little bit wonky, so we're going to just do the best we can. Okay. And so that is our little pages. Put them inside our little book, keeping the tops right side up. So the holes will line up, and then I just put a clip on them. Okay. So there's our tiny books all ready to stitch. So what I'm going to use to stitch these with is waxed linen thread. The waxed linen that I like is this one. Okay, so this is the one that I particularly like. This is a 2-cord thread. Okay, this is a 2-cord thread. Tells you that right here. I also have some that are 3 cords. The 3 cords are heavier than the 2-cord. Either one will work. It just happens to be that this is the one I grabbed because I thought it was a nice color. I have a number of colors of this waxed linen thread that I love very much. And I also use a dull pointed needle because I'm not a fan of stabbing myself. I know, I'm just goofy like that. Yeah, it's a great thread, isn't it? Then when I stitch the book, I do 3 lengths of the height of the book. That's what I do. It works for me. And I don't knot the thread, I just thread it. And this is a short little piece of thread, so because we're doing a tiny little book, so when you're working miniature, everything can be a little more frustrating, but let's do it. Okay, so hopefully the holes are lined up, but we'll find out here shortly. I'm going to start from the inside. It doesn't matter which direction you do, but whatever side you begin from, that's where your tails of thread are going to end up. So if you want to hide the tails of thread inside the book, start inside. If you want them to be a decorative element, start on the outside. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to hold this thread because, again, it's a teeny little short piece of thread. You could use, I'll show you. You can use something like another little binder clip. And you can clip it on your book to hold that little tail or you can use a piece of washi tape. Sometimes that works. It has to be something that you can remove, however. Okay, then I'm going to come to the outside of the book, and I'm going to come from the spine, okay, from the spine through the pages, okay. So that pulls this nice and taut. I'm going to come all the way down, and I'm going to come all the way through the pages and the cover and the bottom hole, okay, and then come back through the middle, again through the pages, the cover and the pages. Now, here's the important part about doing this, is that you have two ends, and you need to have one end on each side of the thread, and this is one long stitch right here, okay? You need to have one thread tail end on each side, okay? And then just tie a knot. So I usually do a square knot, which is right over left and then left over right. And I know my hands are in the way, but this is so tiny. So just tie a nice square knot there in the middle. So you're tying the ends over the long stitch. And then I just come in and clip these. I leave about 1/4 of an inch of the thread, the little tails. And then I usually make the little ends kind of go in line with the thread. And then I'll use something like the end of the pokey tool or my bone folder and just kind of smash that. And it just kind of smashes that knot. And there is your little book, tiny book all stitched together, right? Like this. Okay, let's do the other one. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to use a little bit longer piece of thread just to make life easier for myself. So again, under normal circumstances, I work with 3 times the length of the spine of my book. So we'll do that, and then we'll add some more. 1, 2, 3, and we'll add some more thread. Just the thread is not cheap, but it's not that expensive that I have to worry about saving 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch or a few inches. Okay, this time we'll go the other direction. So we'll start from the outside. Yeah, tiny things are fun. So we're going to start from the outside this time. The last time we started from the inside. Okay, so from the outside, leave a tail. Okay, you don't want the tail to pull through. Normally I can just hold it with my fingers. If you need, you can use a binder clip and you can clip it so that the end stays put. Then I'm going to come to one end or the other. It doesn't matter which end. Okay, so I went to the top end, went through all three pages and the cover. Make sure you take the slack out of the stitch in here. It doesn't get caught around something. Come all the way to the other end. Okay, so skip the middle hole, go all the way to the other end. Through everything, like that. Make sure you've taken the slack out of the thread. You don't want to tear the holes by pulling so hard that you tear the holes in the paper. Now, this has fabric on the other side, so it's not likely to tear. And then back through the center hole one more time, remembering that you want one tail on each side of that center thread. So here's my center thread. And so I've got the needle on one side and the tail of thread on the other. And then unthread your needle. Tighten up your stitches if you need to, which with something this tiny, you shouldn't have a problem with that. And then just knot the thread tails around the long stitch. And I usually just give it 2 knots. If I'm feeling really unsure of myself that day, I might give it 3, but usually I just knot it 2 times. Just kind of smash that knot. And this is where you can decide how long you want the tails to be. If you want the tails to be a decorative kind of thing, then you can let them be longer. But let me tell you something. If you're going to like tie a bead on these kinds of things, make sure they're long enough. The beads will hang off the book, one end or the other. Because if you're working on your book and your beads are within the spine, yeah, it will drive you crazy. I'll show you exactly what I mean if I can put my hand on this book. Hold on a minute. I don't know that it's in here. No, it's with the Mandala Madness class stuff, so I don't have it in here. So I just told you a big fat lie. But I did one of my books one time, and I beaded on these tails. I beaded all the way up to the book, and so now when it sits on my table and I work in it, it rolls because the spine is sitting on the beads. So you want the beads to make sure they hang off or stick up above, where you can move them out of your way when you're working in the book. Okay, so there are the tiniest, cutest little books in the entire world. Now, they're not going to be nice and closed for you because they just aren't. This paper, fabric paper, mixed media paper is not going to, it's going to always have a memory. And at least that's what I think it's going to do, because I've got fabric and fusible web and the mixed media paper going on here, so that's going to have memory. If you wanted to make sure that this is closed, then you might punch and add a closure through the cover, through the back and the front cover. Or you could take something and wrap around it. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to make a little closure for these cute little books. For now, I'm just going to clip them together and hope that encourages them to stay closed a little bit more. Okay? So there's that. So this one we have tied on the outside, the other one's tied on the inside. So either way you do this, you're going to end up with either 2 shorter stitches on one side and 1 longer stitch on the other side, which is what we have here. 2 shorter stitches inside, 1 longer stitch outside. In this case, we have the 2 shorter stitches on the outside and the 1 long stitch inside. Okay, so that's that. And if the leading edge creeping out here bothers you, which it might or might not bother me, I don't know, I'll decide later, I'll just move the covers back and I'll put a ruler up here and I'll trim that off if I need to, if that bothers me. I don't know if it's bothering me yet, so we'll see. Okay, so there's that. So 2 itsy bitsy tiny books. All right, let's talk about the other books. Now, what I have for the other, for this book, this size book, and you can see the difference in the size, okay, of the book. So there's the little tiny one we just did compared to this one, this one looks huge, and it's still a small book. But it looks huge compared to these little itsy tiny guys. So this one has 2 signatures in it. Okay, you see, I'm going to have 2 signatures. So each one of these has to be sewn into the book. All right? Each one has to be sewn into the book. So to size the cover for this one, what I did is I took, let me zoom out so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so what I did here, got stuff in the way. All right. Yeah, you can, that's right, Ada, you can take those tiny little books, so you can take this tiny little book and hide it in a bigger book, and I've done that. on some of my things. I don't know where my journal is where I've done that, but yeah, absolutely. So to size this, I folded the signatures. I used one as my tester. And I decided that I wanted my cover, hopefully, to be about the same size or a tiny bit longer. This one looks like it's going to come out to be the same size. You know, it's a handmade book, so you never know exactly how everything's going to come together. And then I allowed myself a 1/4 of an inch area in the cover for the spine, and then figured out then what that distance was. So I used the depth of the pages. Depth is not the right word. I used the width of the page when it was folded to determine the front cover of my book, plus I added about, I think, 1/8 of an inch or so so it would cover the pages. So we'll see if my measurements work. I'm not strong when it comes to math. I will admit that right now. I measured the cover lengthwise and added a little bit more, like, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or something, so that it would be long enough. And I added a 1/4 of an inch in here for the place to stitch my signatures in. So that's how I arrived at the measurement. So I'll tell you what the measurement is again in case you're wanting to know. It's about, the pages are about 3.5 by 5. This is the folded page I'm talking about, okay? So about 3.5 by 5. So that means when you cut, or when I tore the pieces of paper, the individual pieces of paper, the measurement was 7 wide by 5 tall, okay? All right, so that's how that came to be for the pages. So for the cover measures 7 3/4, okay, wide, and 5 1/8 tall. So that's what I did. All right, so now I'm going to have to do some scoring on this in order to get these, and I'm going to do it from this side, in order to make that 1/4 inch gusset in there. So let's see how this works, shall we? We shall. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is use my centering ruler. And so 0's in the middle, and I need to have the same mark at both ends. So let's see if I can show that to you. So do you see at both ends it's almost at 4? It's like 3 7/8 over here and over here. So I'm going to do that at the top and the bottom, and I'm going to mark it. And I'm going to mark with a pencil, and I know I'm on the outside, and we're going to see if this will show up. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to use something else. And I need a 1/4 of an inch spine, so I'm going to go 1/8 inch on each side of the center of the 0 mark. I'm going to turn it over and do the same thing. So we're going to see how this works out. Okay, 1/8 and 1/8. And the wood grain marks here are messing with me, so we're just going to go to a pen. Let's make sure that this is just this needs to be right there. Okay. So in perfect world, you would not necessarily do this in ink pen. You'd use like a disappearing pen, or you could do it with a friction pen that you could add some heat to and make it disappear and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to score this. So I'm just using a stylus to score it. And then what I want to do is I want to fold on those score marks. Now this is going to score and fold much better in paper, regular paper, than it is when you have fabric and this mixed media paper, but I just thought it would be fun to do something different. I get tired of doing the same thing all the time. I got to do something different, see how it works. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? It didn't work and I throw it in the trash, you know? Okay. So what we have here is we have a spine, and that dark line, that's just part of the paper. Okay, so there is, I'm just trying to show it to you so you can see. So there is a spine right there, right? And hopefully everything ends up to be square with the world. So we have the spine and the front edges should be square. And then hopefully when we put our little pages in here, you see how you've got room to put them in, like so. Okay, so far so good. I agree, Patty. Patty says she has to do things to change it up. Alrighty, so now what I have is I have my pages template for this. My pages template should be the same height as my pages. Okay, same height as the pages. And it's 2 inches across. And just to make it easy for myself, I'm just going to score this so I can fold it. And if it's not exactly in the middle, it doesn't make any difference at all. It just makes it easier to fold it if you score it first. Good enough. Okay, so that goes with these. Okay, so that goes with those. To make the template for where the holes go on a book like this that has a spine, it's different. So you need to have a piece of cardstock that is the height of your book. So that's what I have, a piece of cardstock that's the height of the book. And it's 1/4 of an inch is way too small for me to deal with, so I've made it, I think, 1/2 an inch. Let's see, what did I do? I did it 1/2 an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off, if I mark off 1/8 of an inch, no, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to just mark my 1/4 of an inch in the middle here. So I know where my spine is, so I know exactly where I can punch these holes. The holes are going to be very close together. Remember, we're working on something that's real tiny. Very tiny. Not as tiny as the other one, but it's tiny. Okay. So that is actually the width of my spine between those 2 marks. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to decide where these holes are going to go. So and this is going to be kind of by guess and by golly a little bit. So I'm going to just draw a line. And so it's going to be close to that fold, and you probably can't see, but I'll show you here in just a second. And another one that's kind of close to that fold, or to the spine, where the spine's going to fold. Okay, so on here, these 2 lines in here, give or take a little bit. Actually, do I want to do that? Yeah, it's going to be good enough. It's good enough for this. I'm going to punch my holes on those 2 lines. Now, what I need to do now is figure out how many holes I'm going to do. So once again, I'm going to use my template, and I'm going to use the centering ruler, and I'm going to center my ruler on here. So it's 5 inches, so that means 2.5. It's 5 1/8 inches tall, so just over 2.5, making sure that I've got the distance the same, both ends, so I know that 0 is in the middle. And I'm going to mark 0, and then I'm going to mark just over 1/4 inch from each end, because it's easy. And then I'm going to pick a mark in the middle, just making sure it's the same distance. So I'm going to have 5 holes in this one, and then I'm going to draw those lines all the way across. Now, some people don't do this way. This is just what I do, so that I know where the holes go. And I go through this shenanigans once, and then I save the templates, because if I ever want to do this book again, which I've got 2 more of these, this is already done. Okay? So this is how my spine template ends up looking. So I have the holes, and I have where the stitching holes are going to be. It's all marked off, and now I'm going to poke those holes. So I'm just going to use a magazine or something, and I'm going to use my cutting mat here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, where those lines cross, or I'm going to do just slightly toward the middle, and I'm going to poke my holes. And so where the lines cross, and just a little bit toward the center. Remember that when you're working small, it is a much greater challenge. But that's probably why I like it, because it is a challenge. It is something, it's out of the ordinary. It's not the normal way that I do things. All right, so can you see those holes? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's for one signature. I have 2 signatures, so I've got to repeat the process on the other, for the other one. And I know my hand's in the way, but I got to do it this way so I can see what I'm doing. Then I can show you. Okay, so we have 2 sets of holes, fairly close together. See? And they're ready to then punch the holes in my spine of my book. So I'm going to line this up with the 1/4 inch in the middle. So let's see if we can do this, people. Let's see if we can do this. I'm going to cut my paper down, my spine down to the 1/4 inch, because I want it to nestle right into that spine. So let me cut this down. Fiddly work here, folks. Fiddly work. When you work bigger, it's much easier. Okay, so let's see how we do here. Let's see if this will work. Yeah, because see, what you want this to do is you want this template to fit right in that spine. Okay? All right, so I've got this the right way around. I've got it lining up here. Yeah, I know. Some people don't, some people don't need to do it this way. You know what? It's just how I am on this kind of thing. And I'm not a bookmaker. I just enjoy doing it. And if I screw it up, I will come back and I will do it again. Okay, so let's mark the holes. So right through the holes, I'm going to use an ink pen. And I'll lift it up and just mark them again. Okay. So right through the spine template. Notice that I'm not letting the spine template get completely away from me. It's staying put. Okay, so we have our sets of holes marked right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pokey tool and I'm going to poke those holes right through where I've marked them. See it? Can you see that? So the pokey tool is going through the holes, trying to get it where you can see it. Right there. All right, so there's 2 holes in each spot. So I'm going to do the same thing the rest of the spine here. So I am poking into this mat down here. If I have my hands here, I've got to make sure that the pokey tool is going between my fingers, not into my fingers. Okay, so we got holes poked more or less where we want them. And here's the other thing. If this doesn't turn out exactly the way I want it, I will take a piece of washi tape and glue it right over that or paper. I have no problem doing that whatsoever. All right, so now what we've got is our spine template, and I need to transfer those markings onto my spine template. So that I know where those holes are going to be. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to come back and use my piercing cradle and pierce the holes. Okay. And now we're going to use take our signatures, put them in the piercing cradle, put the template on top of it, and pierce the holes right through where we just poked the holes. Okay, so there's that one. Here's the other one. Okay, and now we're going to stitch this one, which is a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, into our book. So again, I used about the same measurement for the thread, maybe a little bit longer. So about 3 times the height of the spine plus a little bit. dull pointed needle again, because that's what I prefer to use. Don't knot your thread. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to start at one end of my I'm going to start at one end of my holes. So I'm going to line things up, put a clip on it, just makes it easier to control. And I think I'm going to start, it doesn't matter if you start at the bottom or the top. So I'm going to start at the bottom. Go through. Okay. Don't pull your thread all the way through, leave a tail. Now, this is where you got to make sure that you work in the same line of holes, because I've got 2 lines of holes in that cover, right? I'm going to move this to the other side. You got to work in the same line of holes that you punch. So if you're working on the top side, because I've got 2 holes in each space, if I'm started in the top one, I need to stay in the top line of holes all the way through. If you don't, you're going to have yourself messed up. Okay, so through the cover, and then through the signature. Okay, then back through the signature, and I'm just weaving in and out like a running stitch. So I came through, so I took my thread, I went to the outside, and then I came back through the cover and the signature. Then I move up to the next hole, which is going to be in the middle, go through the signature and through the cover. Like so. And then I'm going to come back through the, and I did exactly what I told you not to do. I went through the wrong hole. When that happens, you got to unthread yourself and unsew. Don't you love that? Also known as ripping out. Any of you that are sewers know exactly what I'm talking about. So back through the signature. Okay, let's make sure we go through the proper hole, which is going to be this one. And then we're going to come back through the cover at the next hole. I find that when sewing a book together like this, it is mostly your time is mostly in the preparation, and not nearly as much in the sewing as in the preparation. And back through the top hole. Okay, so at the moment we have 2 stitches inside the book. When you turn it over, we have 2 stitches on the outside of the book. One here, one here. Now I'm going to stitch back through the holes that I've already stitched into. So I go back, I'm working my way back down the spine. So I go through the cover and then back through the signature. This is in the second hole, okay? Now I'm going to go back through the signature on the inside, and then I'll go through the cover. So back through the cover. That's the middle hole. So what you're doing is you're filling the gaps. You're filling the gaps with thread. So back through the cover, back through the signature, like so. And so now we have thread in every single gap here, okay? So we have thread in every gap. And then I'm going to knot the thread off on the inside. That finishes the last stitch area, so just knot the thread and cut it. So we have it stitched on the outside and on the inside, and there's no gaps. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of thread, and on the outside 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of thread. You got it. Now we're going to do the other one. So same thing. Cut your thread long enough. Don't short yourself too much. So 1, 2, 3, and a little bit more. And now we're going to pick up the other signature, and I'm going to start at the same end. Okay. I'm going to come from the inside again. And I'm going to match this up with the other hole, the remaining hole in the cover, like so. If you happen to like books as much as I do, it's worth doing this, making books. If you don't, if books aren't your thing, this may not be your thing. Okay, the next hole through the cover. And then through the signature. Making sure that you've left enough tail down here so you can tie off. Then up to the next hole, out through the next hole in the cover. Then up to the next one through the cover. So this is called a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. So through the cover and through the signature. And then through the last signature and the last hole in the cover. Going one direction. So I've gone all the way from the bottom to the top. Okay? Then we're going to come back through each one of these holes a second time. So into the hole that you've already stitched through in the cover, and then into the signature. Sometimes you can do it all in one motion, but this cover is, since it's got fabric on it, is being a little unwieldy, so that's why I'm doing it in 2 motions. So back through the signature and the cover. So now we're filling the gaps as we stitch our way back down, back through the next hole, and back into the signature again. And tighten up this bottom thread down here, tighten this up a little bit so everything looks nice and neat. And now just tie off your threads. And that, when you tie the threads at the last, down here at the bottom or the top, wherever you're working, that fills in, that completes the last stitch. So you should have a total line of thread on the spine and also on inside the signatures. And then when it folds to the closed position, you can see your stitches in the spine. Okay? So there is our little completed book, and then of course I would trim off all these threads. But here's our little completed book. So there's the cover, and here are our pages. Just like so. So it's a sweet, cute little book with 2 signatures in it. And amazingly, has lots of colorful, and you'll have a gap in the middle between the signatures. That's normal. That's why I like to have the fabric or something in there, paper or fabric, something that's pretty to look at. Like so. So out of just a few pieces of paper, you get a fun little book. And there she is. And she looks pretty cute. And then if you want to hold this closed, you can use a piece of sari silk ribbon or yarn or something like that. And you can see the edge that I've left right here in the front cover. So there's a little bit of the cover extending beyond the signatures. And as I said, if you want to, you can cover this. If this didn't go exactly as planned, you can cover this by just using some tacky glue or some crafter's pick glue, and use a piece of fabric, a piece of paper, a piece of washi tape, but always reinforce it with glue. Don't ever put something on here that's like a self-stick, or you can use the sticky back canvas to cover this. I use that a lot in the spines, but again, add glue so that it doesn't, so it reinforces whatever glue they've used in the manufacturing process. Okay. Just don't put beads in the center. Exactly. Okay, and so that is that. So I have 2 more little books to do, and I will do those off camera, and I will show those to you when I take pictures and write the blog post. And then we have, of course, our 2 little tiny ones, or 2 little itsy bitsy ones. So out of those 3 sheets of mixed media paper, which the size was, let me check the size because I don't remember for sure. It was 14 by 17, so it was the Canson mixed media paper 14 by 17. And that's what we did last week, were those 3 sheets of paper using the Model Magic print plates and stamps and so forth. Out of that, I will get 3 books this size, which is 3.5. Is it 3.5 by 5? I've said this so many times, you'd think I'd remember. It's about 3, the pages are 3.5 by 5. So I'll have 3 books of that size, and then 2 of the little tiny ones out of that 3 pieces of paper. So that's pretty good. So CB just contact me on Twitter. You can just direct message me on Twitter. That's fine. Okay. Yes. So next up, and I will finish all those later. Next up, I want to talk to you about some stuff that we've got going on. We've got a bunch of projects in the works that are going to take a lot more time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a change in my streaming schedule. And so I'm going to go to a once a month streaming schedule. So I'm not stopping streaming, I'm just adjusting and changing things a little bit. And so I'm going to stream on the first Friday of each month, and I may do more. Sometimes I may do impromptu stuff, you never know. But I may come back, at some point in the future and pick up more times. But for now, that's what we're going to do, is go to once a month. So that's going to start in November, which is November the 3rd. So what's going to happen is I will not be streaming next Friday, but I will be streaming the Friday after that, because that will be the first Friday in November. So I don't know what we're doing then, but I'll try and have something kind of fun and special for you each. Well, I try to do that every week, honestly. But I've just got, we got some stuff we've got to get finished up. And so it's going to take a little bit more time. So I'm not going away. I'm not going away. I'm just changing. Just changing a little bit. And there are plenty, believe me, there are plenty of streamers out here that will be happy to entertain you. Very happy to entertain you. I just have to kind of prioritize a little bit right now. So anyway, any questions? It's sad for you guys. It'll be okay. We'll all be okay. Seriously, we will. We will. All right, let me get the sponsors out. We're going to get them out. This is going to be a bit of a shorter stream today for the same reasons. Just that I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to get accomplished. So a little bit shorter stream today. Not much, but a little bit. So let me get the sponsors out. And then we're going to say, I'll see you next in 2 weeks. So let me get sponsors. Seriously, you have made a mess in there. You two. I can't trust you guys for anything. They clearly were having a lot of fun in there today. They knocked stuff off the table. They are the epitome of the Siamese from Lady and the Tramp, let me tell you. They can sing that song, "We are Siamese if you please." Da-da-da-da. Can't you? And this is the one that's usually responsible for most of it. Yeah. So, yeah, he is something else. So anyway, thank you guys for being here and joining me today. And hopefully you enjoyed seeing how to make little tiny books. They're fun to do. So thanks for being here, everybody. I will be back in 2 weeks on November the 3rd. And then the stream after that will be the first Friday in December. So I will see you then. Okay? If you want to come visit me over at HowToGetCreative.com, you are all invited, and come check us out. And in the meantime, I will see you soon. All right. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks so much for being here for Drama Free Friday. I'm Barb Owen, HowToGetCreative.com, and I will see you 2 weeks. Okay? See you guys. Bye, everybody.